All right. It is 7 o'clock or just after 7 o'clock. Welcome everyone to tonight's presentation. As always, it's a pleasure to present to you all. My name is John Mantia. I'm joined by my colleague Danny Hample, and our company is called Parco. It stands for Pension Americans Retirement Company. I see a lot of familiar folks on the call tonight, which is great, but then I also see a lot of new folks as well. Just a couple things, a little bit about us. At Parco, we focus on retirement and financial planning for anybody with a pension, but especially government and federal employees. And we work with folks throughout any point in their career. So we'll work with a lot of folks who are maybe just starting out, wanting to make sure that they're taking full advantage of the benefits available to them as a government employee. Then we'll focus on folks and work with folks who are maybe in the middle of their career and who have gone through a life change. Maybe they just had kids, or their kids are getting older and they're wondering if they need enough life insurance. They need to make sure they're taking full advantage of the benefits they have to position themselves well for retirement. And then we'll work with a lot of folks who are at the near at the end of their careers, nearing the end of their careers, or who have left federal service and want to make sure that they've put themselves in a great position to enjoy their golden years and enjoy their retirements that they work so hard for. So no matter what stage of your career that you're in, we work with folks across the country and around the world. And so we've been putting on these webinars now a lot, like every Wednesday night. It's Webinar Wednesday, so welcome everyone. And I know that for a few of you who are new, there's just a few ground rules to keep in mind. There's a chat section within the Zoom link, and people have been using that a lot lately. So if there's things that you want to chat about, you can chat in there, and Danny and then myself after the webinar will be happy to talk and answer any questions that you have in there. Second is that there is a Q&A section. So if maybe you have something you want to ask is like a Q&A, you can ask it in that window as well. We'll also be putting together out a poll a little bit later in the presentation just to get a sense of where you all found us. And then finally, throughout the presentation, you'll notice these QR codes in the top right-hand corner of the screen. If you scan that QR code or if you go to app.goparco.com, you can create an account on our platform. And in there, you can get a lot of the retirement planning stuff that we're going to be talking about tonight, tailored specifically for you. And then also, you can schedule a time to speak with one of our teammates about your situation one on one. So you can do that through the platform. You can also request that appointment here in the chat or in the Q&A window, and we'll get you scheduled up to do so, totally free of charge. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And here's kind of an example of what the platform looks like. Talking about the DRP. It's about a month away, and for most folks, it's about a month away. And we wanted to do a presentation tonight that focused on what are the things that you need to make sure you have prepared before the DRP happens. So we'll go through a couple quick facts about the DRP. We'll talk about the new retirement portal or the online retirement application portal that all federal employees are being asked to use to complete their retirement paperwork. Some of the things we've heard from folks about that and some things to know about it. Then we'll talk about what to expect upon retiring. I know a lot of you are, this has been a goal for you for maybe 20, 30 plus years, and you want to make sure that you understand what exactly is going to happen when you do retire. And we'll talk about some ways that you can prepare. We'll go through a case study of how people think about their finances as they approach retirement that might be familiar to some of you. Then we'll talk about a checklist and wrap up and how to get started. So let's go through a couple quick facts about the DRP. So the DRP was offered back in February, and there have been subsequent versions of it offered depending on the agency and department that you work at. But it basically was an offering that allowed folks that otherwise wouldn't necessarily think about leaving federal service to do so. And a lot of people took the DRP. I mean, probably many of you know that your colleagues or friends at work took the DRP. So a lot of people took it, and it was attractive to folks either who were thinking about retiring this year anyway, or maybe who were wanting to leave service but weren't normally going to be eligible unless a Vera was offered. Folks who were in a financial position to do so, or maybe had other income streams where they could afford to think about retiring maybe younger than they expected. So it was compelling to a lot of people. And so, an example of somebody who this might have been very attractive to, I imagine a lot of you on the call are like this, or your colleagues are like this, was somebody like Dave, who worked at the USDA for 32 years. He was 58 years old, and he had planned to retire in March. Well, He's fully eligible to retire based on the eligibility requirements for a federal employee because he's got more than 30 years of service and he's over age 57. And so if he had retired as planned in March, his retirement would have effectively started, his pensions would have started in May. Under the DRP, or the Deferred Resignation Program, he got to basically be on admin leave through part of Q1, all of Q2, and all of Q3 up to the end of September. So he'll get paid, and he got paid his regular wage during that time period, and then his pension will start here in November. So for those of you who are taking the DRP and whose DRP dates are is 9/30 is the end of the fiscal year, those pension checks will be owed to you starting the beginning of November. So it was pretty attractive for folks who were like, man, I was already going to retire. I might as well take this DRP, get paid my regular wage just to be on admin leave for more months, and then I'll start my retirement then. So it meant more money. There were folks who were exempt. And something to keep in mind because we had a lot of folks say, hey, like, I'm eligible to retire, but because of my position, I wasn't able to take the DRP or it wasn't offered to me. Can I still retire? And the answer is yes. So long as you're fully eligible to retire, you can still retire anytime. The DRP basically just lowered those requirements for folks. So, and again, if you do have any questions, you can ask them in the chat window or in the Q&A window. So now let's talk about this new ORA portal. So there's this new ORA portal. It's called the Online Retirement Application, the ORA, and it's a retirement portal for all federal employees. Now, to get access to the ORA portal, because we've had a lot of folks reach out to us about this, they say, "Hey, look, I want to retire. Let's do the retirement paperwork." And we say, "Well, look, if you want, we'll help you through the ORA portal. We'll go through it with you, but have you requested access from HR?" And they'll say, "No, I didn't know I needed to do that." So, to get access to the ORA portal as it is right now, you need to request access to it from your HR. They will then grant you access to it, then you can get into it. Um, as you onboard with ORA and into the portal, there will be a PIN generated. You're going to want to make sure to write that down or remember it because it'll allow you to get back in if you get locked out. So just one of those things that you can learn from the experience of the federal employees that we've worked with who didn't do this and have had to go through the rigmarole of getting it back. These are some of like the important tips to know, especially for those of you who haven't gone through the ORA portal on your own. Once you get into the ORA portal, it's pretty straightforward. You'll ask for it'll ask you for some identifying information or to confirm some of your identifying information. It'll ask you to confirm some of your federal service information and things about your marital status. One thing we want to point out, because I was actually on the phone with a client earlier this morning, the federal service that she had in her system that the ORA portal showed was wrong. And so she had to reach out to HR to say, hey, look, this is actually wrong. I have more years of service. This isn't included in my buyback. There were some complications with her data. So you'll want to make sure that the data is correct in here. And if it's not, you'll need to reach out to HR to tell them it's not correct. And with anything, be it retirement planning, FEGLI, anything, you really have to be your own advocate and be really persistent because HR is very overwhelmed right now. I mean, a lot of HR folks took the DRP, so there's just not that support available to folks. And so you really have to be active. You have to be the one who's out there kind of fighting for yourself. It's the old adage where the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So make sure the information in here is right. Now, some folks will tell us, hey, well, like, no, I'm going to do this all online, so I don't need to do anything in person, or I don't need to do anything in the real world. Well, the thing is, this new ORA portal is not a purely digital experience. There's still things that you need to upload depending on your situation. So you need to upload a W-4P for your tax withholdings. You need to upload a FEGLI. I'm going to change this right now. It's a 28. Bother me. You'll have to upload a continuation of life insurance form or a SF 2818. You have to upload a FEGLI beneficiary form, so who you would name as the beneficiary on your FEGLI coverages. You have to upload the birth certificates of your children under age 22. This is to guarantee or to confirm with OPM and with HR that your kids can stay on your FEHB. You also have to upload a first survivor benefit beneficiary form. You also have to upload, if you're married, a copy of your marriage certificate. And you have to upload a copy of your spousal consent form if you're not electing a full survivor benefit on your pension. So sometimes people will say to us, "Hey, I got the ORA portal. I'm all done. This is going to be it." And we like to point out, "Hey, look, you need to get these things together." So if you're thinking about going through the ORA portal or getting your retirement stuff all sorted out here over the next week or so, get these forms together because the marriage certificate might be in the safe deposit box of the bank, or your kids' birth certificates might be at your mom and dad's house. Like it could be anywhere, and you'll need to make sure you have copies of those to upload as necessary to the ORA portal. Otherwise, it'll block you from being able to complete and submit that retirement paperwork. So we've had a couple of people ask us a question as well. It's like, what if I make a mistake? Well, to fix it, you have to submit a ticket to HR. So let's say that you put the wrong date for something or you put the wrong information in there and you make a mistake when you submit it, you have to submit a ticket to HR. And as of right now, it is unclear whether or not that will impact your retirement being processed. We have not heard confirmation on what that impact is because we've had folks ask that. But we do know the answer to the question of if you make a mistake, you have to submit a ticket and then they'll address it that way. And I will also point out that these things in this platform, this ORA platform in particular, are being updated every day. So the experience keeps changing. So, if we were given this presentation 3 weeks ago, the information we'd communicate to you would be different than what we're communicating now because we've seen the updates and heard the updates from our clients and from what we've been able to read from publicly available sources. So keep vigilant on this stuff because it can and does change. So that's the ORA portal. Now let's talk about what to expect upon retiring. Probably the first one, and probably most surprising to a lot of folks who don't know about it, is something called the interim period. Some of you may know about this, some of you may not. But the interim period is this period that every federal employee goes through. Doesn't matter what agency you work for, doesn't matter what rank you have, doesn't matter what your job title is, but something every federal employee goes through as they transition into being a federal retiree upon retirement. So when you retire from the federal government, let's say you retire at the end of September here, your retirement is going to post on the first day of October. Then they're going to process that through the entire month of October. And then the first week of November, you're going to be owed your first pension check. However, that first pension check that they send you is not going to be the full amount. It's going to be some amount less than what they're supposed to pay you. Usually it's between 40 and 60%. Now, they will underpay you for a period of time. That period of time is called the interim period. Now, that time period could last a couple months. It could last a dozen. Um, we've seen it last a long time for folks. And now you will get back paid for the time that for the pay that you're owed during that interim period, but that can cause a real big cash flow crunch for people as they transition into retirement. So it's one of those things we always like to make sure people are aware of. And one of the nice things I think for a lot of folks who have been on the DRP or who took the DRP is that that's allowed many of you to accumulate annual leave. And that annual leave is really special because the government will buy it back upon you retiring. So when you retire with unused annual leave, you'll actually get cash value for that annual leave. And that cash value can serve as really important financial ballast for you during that interim period. So we always say that the best way to prepare for retirement is to be prepared and to avoid surprises and expectations being well managed. Understanding that the interim period is going to happen is a lot better to know about beforehand than to be like, man, like where's my pension check? Or man, why is my pension check so small? Maybe I should wait on a hold with OPM for 3 hours. It's very normal, and in one day you will get back paid for everything they're owed when and that will signify the end of your interim period. And just to kind of convey how valuable selling that time back, let's say that you retired with 448 hours of annual leave and you were somebody like Sam who made $77,000 per year. He would get a check for a net check after taxes for over $11,000. So that's a really important extra chunk of change to have right into retirement, especially with that interim period coming. Another thing to do to prepare for retirement is to download your personnel folder. Now, I know some of you don't have access to this as much anymore because you maybe don't have your CAC card or now that you're on admin leave. But for those of you who do have access to this, we'd recommend that you get a copy of your EOPF and download that and have that for your records. Because if there's some issue or if there's something you need to go back for, you'll want to have that source of truth um, to be able to reference in the future. It's one of those things you don't realize what you might need until you need it, and it's one of those things that you can't get once you're retired. And we've made it really easy for you to actually store those documents right within our secure portal and platform, right in the documents tab there. So if you want to have it all stored in one place that you can access from anywhere, that's super safe and secure, you can do so right from our platform there on the documents tab. So another thing that people ask us all the time when it comes to uh, thinking about retiring, especially for those of you that are retiring younger, is they say to us, "Man, like I'm retiring, I'm 57, I've got plenty of years of service. I know I'm gonna have plenty of money. I've saved really well in my TSP, but I can't touch my TSP till I'm 59 and a half." Well, there's a couple different ways that you can touch your retirement money, be it your TSP or your IRAs, before you're 59 and a half. As it relates to your TSP or your 401ks, the important one for us to know about is something called the IRS Rule of 55. This rule states that so long as you separate from service on or after the calendar year that you turn 55, you can take withdrawals out of a 401k or out of your TSP without facing the 10% statutory penalty. So you will have to pay taxes on withdrawals from your traditional TSP. That's normal, right? That's unavoidable. But you will not have to pay the 10% penalty on those withdrawals so long as you take those withdrawals from an account like your 401k or your TSP on or after the calendar year that you turn 55. This is the first thing that enables federal retirees to access their money before they're 59 and a half from their retirement savings. There was a question that I just want to kind of touch on about uh, when do you get that annual leave paid to you? That is supposed to come to you with your last check. So it's right supposed to come right at the end of your career. So on top of the rule of 55 and the IRS rule of 55, there's also something called 72T withdrawals. So 72T withdrawals are IRS rules that allow you to take money out of an IRA without having the 10% penalty. Now, there's rules around it. You must follow what's called the substantially equal periodic payment rules. And this applies to IRAs and then other employer sponsored plans. Um, for 72T withdrawals to qualify, they have to be exactly the same. So they have to be consistent. They have to be the same amount. They have to come out of your account for 5 years or until you're 59 and a half, whichever is longer. So let's say that you retire at 53 and you want to take these 72T withdrawals. So you're too young to take the IRS 55 rules, but you still want to take money out of your account on top of, to get on top of your pension, on top of your first supplement, things like that. You can take money out of an IRA, especially, but it will have to persist. That payment will have to persist until you're 59 and a half or 5 years, whichever is longer. So in this case, it'd be 59 and a half. And those payments must be based on one of the three IRS approved calculation methods. And those are the RMD method, the fixed amortization method, or the fixed annuitization method. So either of these three methods yields different amounts that you are required to withdraw given a balance. And all of them are based around life expectancy and IRS interest rate guidelines. And this is something that, especially if you're interested in, or if this is you where you're thinking about it, create your account on Parco, book an appointment, ask for an appointment with us today, and we'll go through how this would apply to you and the best strategy around it. We actually were working with a client earlier today to try to solve this because fortunately they're able to think about retiring younger, but that also comes with some things we need to plan for. Because it does allow you to access your money before you're 59 and a half, especially those who are younger. And you also get predictable cash flow, but you're making a commitment to have those payments continue, and you want to make sure that you plan it right. And that's what we really try to focus on for folks, especially who are trying to retire young. So now let's talk about just kind of like a simple example of what retirement could look like for you. So let's take DHA Dave. He's 60 years old. He has 30 years of service. His base salary is $75,000 per year. Um, his net take home per pay period is $1,592. His high three is 72,000, and his Social Security at age 62 is $1,800 a month. So when he looks at his income while he's working, his gross income is about $6,250 per month. His pension plus his first supplement will be $3,150, and he says, "My goodness, there's no way I can afford to retire." Well, we like to point out, look, Dave, you have a TSP. You're gonna stop contributing to that in retirement. That's coming out of your paycheck right now. That's gonna cease. Maybe you're gonna keep your Fegly Basic Life, but you're gonna drop your option B. Your income taxes are also gonna go down because you're making less money. You're just making less money, so your income tax rate goes down, but so does the dollars of taxes that you pay. Also, really important, you don't pay Social Security or Medicare taxes in retirement. You don't pay those taxes on first supplement, pension, distributions from annuities, from IRAs, retirement accounts, anything like that. It's not subject to Social Security or Medicare taxes. Those taxes are only on earned income. Now, he's going to keep his federal health care because he knows that's a good deal. But then when he looks at his actual net difference, it's only $1,135, not this $3,100. So when he thinks about how much of his income is being replaced by his FERS and his pension, on a gross basis, it's about half. But on a net basis, it's about 67% of his net income after we account for all those deductions. Now, there's still a 33% shortfall that we need to replace, but that's way more possible. It's way less money. And so that's sort of like one of the main questions that we help our clients strategize and figure out how to answer. Because when somebody like Dave says, "Hey, look, I'm going to have this gap. It's going to be about $1,100 per month, 1135. How much do I need to have set aside?" Oftentimes, and many of you may have heard of this before, he'll hear that he should use something called the 4% rule. Where, hey, you should plan to withdraw about 4% of your balance every year, and this will help account for fluctuations in the market and should mean that your money doesn't run out. And so we can take that 4% rule and we can invert it to calculate how much Dave needs to have saved or imply a balance. However, this rule came about in the early 90s, and it was a really solid rule at the time for the interest rate environment and for life expectancy of folks at retirement in the 90s. But things have changed. And so now a more current recommended withdrawal strategy is something closer to the 3%, where it's a more conservative withdrawal amount because interest rates are lower than they were back then. People are living longer, so you need that money to last longer. It's harder to do so. So we use the 3% rule as sort of like a guidepost for how much you need to have set aside. And so we'll walk through the implications of that. So in Dave's case, he says, okay, I need $1,135 per month. That's $13,620 per year. $13,620 is 3% of how much money? So that's how we can invert to get back. So in Dave's case, that's about $454,000. But remember, the numbers we were calculating were on a net basis. So when we account for taxes, he actually he needs over $500,000 set aside using the 3% rule when we account for taxes. If Dave decided he was going to use the 4% rule, this kind of shows the implications here. it would require just shy of $400,000. Using to get 4% is or the amount of month $1,306 per month is 4% of $391,800. And then what we help folks try to strategize is to make sure that they are using their capital as efficiently as possible and set aside less to achieve that same monthly income. And then allowing them to invest more and keep more in the market and grow it for their legacy or for their withdrawal goals or for their long-term goals. This is one of the things that we do within our platform and with our team whenever you schedule a time to talk to us. So just to kind of wrap up and then open things up for Q&A and for discussion, you know, the first things that we would recommend you do is request access to the ORA from HR. Like that's if you especially if you're on the DRP and doing the DRP and you haven't done this yet, do that tomorrow. Then make sure you get all the required forms and documents together. If you don't have a copy of your marriage certificate and you got to request one from the state that you got married in, I'd get on that. Um, it's way better to have this done now than put it off. Download your EOPF and other personnel files, and you can upload those right to the portal. Just kind of get those things that you need to have access to from your time with the government to make sure you have that in your possession in case you need it for your records. And then as you're approaching retirement, evaluate your lifestyle goals. How do you want to live? What do you want to do in retirement? Um, what does that look like? And then you can do all that by getting started by creating your account on app.goparco.com. Because we don't think that you should have to memorize all of this stuff. I think many of you who've been on our webinars before understand that, we really focus on trying to create the most value for you all so you're not having to keep track of all the latest updates from the IRS and from what's happening with the government. And so keeping it all in one place through our uh, delightful and simple platform that we're iterating on all the time. So if you have feedback for us, of course, let us know. Um, so with that, I'm going to open things up to questions. I'm also going to put the poll out here in just a moment too, and then Danny and I will be able to answer any other questions you have. Um, so also here's a couple Q&A questions that are coming in. Oh, so there's a great comment here from Deborah. She says, I was informed by my best counselor that when you retire, you have to wait a month after your retirement date to withdraw from your TSP account. Is this correct? I will say the answer to that is that that is accurate. However, we have seen situations where people have access to their TSPs a lot sooner. So I would say at most it takes a month, but we have seen times where folks say, hey, look, I retired at the end of the month and I went on TSP's website and I can do the withdrawal now or I can do the rollover now. That does happen. So it doesn't have to take that month. I hope that answers your question, Deborah. And what's really powerful too about this platform, Francis makes a good point. Within our platform itself, you can do all your retirement planning. So we'll analyze and calculate your pension. We'll calculate your FERS supplement, your Social Security, show you how that compares to what you're making now, net of all deductions. We also have this really, really fun slider on the right and left hand side that allows you to uh, see what your retirement dates look like and your retirement amounts look like at different times. Um, and then we score your retirement based on how well prepared you are. And then you can also connect all of your accounts. So if you have a TSP account or you have a 401k account or an IRA account, you can connect those live and the values will come in live. And we're iterating on this every single day to make this more and more valuable for you. It's kind of like that one place for you to have this all managed. Let's see here. I'm just going to put this poll together. Hold on. 1 second. Keep the questions coming. I'm gonna launch the poll. Okay. Just a quick little poll out there just about how you heard about tonight's webinar. And then also within the chat too, I think a lot of folks have been asking like Yeah, we did this webinar last week. This is an encore presentation. What would you like to hear about next? We know that, especially as this time of year approaches, a lot of folks are wondering about Roth conversions. People are worried about RMDs. People are thinking about, hey, how do I use the Parco platform and make it work for me? It could be something like that. It could be Fegley and life insurance planning. Like within the chat or within the Q&A section, let us know what topics you'd like, because that's where we get, the ideas uh, for our next presentation. So if there's ever been something that's been burning for you, I know folks have been asking us a lot about getting a mortgage in retirement. Um, it's possible. It's definitely possible, and it's actually a lot easier than you might expect. So it's not something you should be scared of. Um, People ask about estate planning, trust planning, anything that you could want us to cover. We'd be happy to cover. Yeah, Roth conversions within the thrift. That's a great one. Yeah, toast and panels. Let me see. I can show you all how the platform works if you'd like, but I know that a lot of you also had questions about the DRP, so I don't want to focus too much on uh too much on the platform if the DRP is more important for y'all. Oh, really good one. Somebody asked, "Hey, can we do one on staying with FEHB, or going on to Medicare or Medicare supplemental?" You guys are about to get inundated with phone calls pretty soon for a Medicare supplemental. Um, Medicare supplemental coverages and things like that. And we definitely need to do one on that. Fegley and life insurance is, I think, also another really powerful one. Um, Another really powerful one. Uh, Here, you know what? Since a few people have asked for it, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for just a second, just so you all get a sense of how this works. So just give me one moment. I can still see your questions coming through, so keep them coming. I know Danny's answering a few of them as well. And if you give me one moment, I will share my screen. So just so you all have a sense, this is one of our test accounts, but you can slide your retirement date back and forth and see how your numbers change as you get older. This is a example, which is kind of fun. You can also see how your working take home pay compares to what you'll be making in retirement. You can also see set your lifestyle goals. So how do you want to live in retirement? And that helps us determine what your score will be. Um, and we obviously help people solve this. You can also connect your accounts here. So if you want to link your TSP account or a Fidelity account or a Charles Schwab account, you can do so right from our platform here, and it'll live update your account. Um, so you can see what your values are every single time you log in. It'll work for your mortgage and everything else like that too. Um, it'll also analyze your TSP, how your holdings look. Um, like I said, you can store your documents here. It'll show your benefits if you're enrolled in any specific benefits. And then, of course, you can edit all of this right from the platform as well. Um, so if something's different, if you're uh, you know if your date of hire is different, or um, say 1994 for Fox, and he's thinking about retiring in the future here, so he can slide these numbers back and forth and play with it, which is something we think a lot of people have been asking us for, or we know a lot of people have been asking us for, and so we wanted to make it as easy as possible for you all to plan your retirements right from your fingertips. And we're building new stuff all the time. So if there's other features or things you'd like in here, you just tell us, and we'll make it for you. Let's see what other questions we have that came in here. All right. Well, I'm not seeing a whole lot more, so I'll stay on here for just a few more minutes in case other people have questions they want to ask or comments they want to make before we pop off tonight. We'll be announcing what our next uh, we'll be announcing our next webinar here soon. People ask us all the time about how secure our website is. Our website uses the same, you know, super encryptions that Amazon and Google use, so it's exceptionally secure. Exceptionally secure. Um, all I was saying was that we'll be announcing our next webinar coming up in the next probably few days. Once we, of course, thank you. Once we come up with a good topic that we think is going to be relevant for folks, and we'll let you all know. We're trying to do more to let people know about these webinars and everything that we're trying to build here at Parco. So if there's folks that you'd like to invite to the next one, feel free to forward our email around or let us know, and we'll reach out to them directly. Because we know there's a lot of confusion right now among the federal workforce, and we're trying to be a helpful resource to you all to make that transition a lot easier, especially with the DRP now just about a month away. So I'm not seeing a whole lot of other questions in here. So I'm going to go ahead and let everybody go for the evening. And of course, if you need anything from us, you just let us know. And you all have a great rest of your night. Be well.